Hello friends, welcome to chapter 3 of this course, the Simplest Vedic Astrology course. The chapter 3, we will learn about planets. So in chapters 1 and 2, we learned about what a chart is, what are the different things that you need for predictions. We went through houses, we went through what an ascendant is. Now we're going to understand what planets are. In simple words, we are not going to go into the astronomical angle and understand what planets are, their electromagnetic energies, etc. etc. We are just going to simply look at the list of planets that we have in astrology, and we are going to learn their mythological stories and what they are, what they're capable of, in simple links, so that then we can draw a parallel. हम इसके छोटे छोटे स्टोरीज बना के हम जितना हमको प्रेडिक्शन के लिए ज़रूरत है उतना हम सीखें. Okay, let's go ahead. So, let's start with the first planet, that is Sun or Surya. Surya always shows a leadership. He is the ultimate leader. He is the father, he is the leader, he is always the radiant leader. तो अपने ये leadership skills को दिखाता है. जो whichever house Surya is placed, it shows leadership skills in that house, right? Now, I want to tell you a very simple story about Surya. Surya was married to Sanjana, and Sanjana deeply loved Surya. But Sanjana couldn't sustain the heat as well as the radiance of Surya, and then she decided to create a shadow of herself. So she created a shadow called Chaya, and now she requested Chaya to take care of Surya, and then she went off to the forest where she could meditate. Now next, Chaya was taking care of Surya with all devotion, and they still have a kid whose name was Saturn or Shani. So the son of Surya and Chaya was Shani. And all this while, Surya never felt that there was a difference, never was suspicious. But then, Chaya started treating Shani differently and all the other sons of Surya differently. At this point of time, Surya started feeling suspicious that there is something wrong is going on. So he started questioning Chaya at that point, and then realized that Chaya was a shadow of Sanjana, and Sanjana was in the forest meditating. So then he gets so angry that he then burns the feet of Shani. That's why mythologically Shani is said to have been leaping. शनि की पैरों में लग गया तो तब से वो थोड़ा सा स्लोली चलते हैं और वो थोड़ा लिंप करते हैं, थोड़ा खींच पे चलते हैं. So then Sun realized, that is Surya realized that yes, this is a big problem because of which Sanjana has left. Now he goes and gets her back, and he realizes that the radiance and the heat was too much for her to tolerate, so he makes it soft and he reduces that heat and the radiance for Sanjana to live, and they live together. So this is one of those stories of Surya that is written in the Purana that explain the leadership skills of Surya, the understanding of Surya, and how good Surya is, and how he will treat you in different houses in your chart. Okay. Now, let's move to the next planet, that is Venus. Venus is always known as a planet of beauty, luxury, and peace and calmness, etc. Right? So Venus is ideally supposed to be Shukra. Shukra is a man, but usually when we talk about beauty, we always talk about a woman, and hence we put a picture of a woman. So we will always think about Venus from the angle of the woman from there onwards. But let's hear a story of Shukra. So in the ancient times, the gods and demons were always fighting, and the demons had one secret weapon with them, and that was Shukra, and the mantra that Shukra had. The mantra was called Murta Sanjeevani mantra, and this mantra could revive any dead person. So every time a demon died, an asura died, Shukra could revive him back from death, and so the gods were always those in the battle. And now the gods got so confused that how can we win against the demons? They thought a lot, and then they realized that, then they spoke about it, discussed about it, and then Brihaspati, the guru of gods, decided to send his son Kacha to study under Shukra. Now, the plan was they wanted to send Kacha so that he can learn this mantra and then use this mantra to start reviving all the gods so that they can win this battle or the war. Shukra knew this plan already, but then he could also not say no to a sincere student who is asking to learn from him. So he says, okay, you can come and learn in my ashram. So Kacha starts working in that ashram and he starts learning from Shukra. But then the demons realize this plan of Kacha, that this is what is happening, right? He's going to learn the secret and then he's going to use that against them. So the demon take Kacha to a forest and they kill him. And when Shukra gets to know this, he then uses the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra to revive Kacha. But the demons kill him once again. The demons kill Kacha once again. And they kill him once again. And this kept happening. And the third time, the demons killed him, burnt his body into ashes, and used that ash to create a wine. And they gave this wine to Shukra, so that Shukra will drink it. Now, when Shukra consumes this wine, he realizes that now Kacha is inside of him. So, if he revives Kacha, that means Kacha will burst out of him and it will lead to the death of Shukra himself. The other option that he had was to let Kacha fail. He was one of his students and he couldn't allow a student to fail. It was against his dharma. So after a deep thought process, he then decides to revive Kacha, and then he uses the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra once again to revive Kacha, and Kacha bursts out of him. At this point of time, Shukra dies. But then Kacha, who is a good student, now he uses the same mantra and revives Shukra. So what do we learn from this story? This is one of the stories written in the Puranas. Most importantly, Venus is always about peace, calm, and following the dharma. Okay, so this is what we learn. So as we use Venus for prediction, this is one of the things that we keep in mind. Okay. We go back to Jupiter. Jupiter or Brihaspati is the guru of all gods. So once upon a time, when there was no king for the gods, all the gods got into a discussion and they wanted to elect a king. And when they discussed, they found the best candidate was Brihaspati. Because Brihaspati was very knowledgeable. He was always correct. He had a lot of wisdom, and he made the best king according to them. So the gods visited Brihaspati and they suggested that Brihaspati should now become the king. So Brihaspati gave it a part. He thought about it for a while, and then he says, "No, I cannot become the king. A king needs to show his power. A king needs to fight. A king needs to punish. But I am a teacher, and wisdom is my biggest strength. I can shine brighter as a teacher I can shine brighter as a teacher than a king. So I will not make the right king." And hence he said no to all the gods. So this is the story of Brihaspati not becoming the king, but he is one of those planets who is always doing good to everybody. There is no bad side to Jupiter at all. Okay, now the next one. Moon. Okay, so we've all heard about what happened in the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean. The gods as well as the demons, that is Asuras and the Devas, they wanted to get a lot of treasures from the ocean, so they started churning the ocean. And when they started churning the ocean, they found a lot of jewels, goddesses, and a lot of treasures. And in the same ocean, they also got a small child, and this child was the symbolism of the softness and calmness and peacefulness. So the gods named him as Chandra. And now the gods took Chandra to Lord Shiva and they said, this is Chandra. And Lord Shiva was really impressed and he put it on his head. And so Lord Shiva is still called as Chandrasekhara. So in origin, moon was never born out of a curse or any other problem. It was born out of the churning of the ocean. This is one of the origin stories of moon. So we usually say moon, we usually depict moon as a mother or a motherly emotional feeling, because moon is what results in the tides flowing in the ocean, and moon represents our mind, right? So always, that's why we have represented moon as a woman, and as we go ahead in this course, we will understand why that makes more sense. There was a demon Asura called as Tarakasura, and he got a boon from Lord Shiva saying that only the son of Lord Shiva can kill this demon Tarakasura. But Lord Shiva was in deep meditation and he didn't have a son. So the gods got worried and they went to Lord Shiva and they started praying. And then Lord Shiva opened his third eye, and when he opened his third eye, a small fire or a small what do you call a small wash? A small spark of fire originated from the third eye of Lord Shiva, and it fell on the Bhumi Devi or the earth. Now Bhumi Devi took care of this small spark as a child, and she nurtured him as Mars. And that's when Mars was famously known for his courage, for his attitude, and for his bravery, etc., etc. So later Mangal became known as a god of strength, and later Mangal became known as the god of the strength, war, careers, and protection. So that's about Mars, right? So Mars is about blood, it's about being energetic, it's about being active, it's about being angry, it's about being creative, etc. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so Mercury, long before Mercury became the famous planet, he was living in the human world as a sage, and he was traveling. He was famous for traveling everywhere, and he basically wanted to know, why do things happen the way they do? Why do people think differently? Why does water flow the way it flows? Why do trees grow the way it grows? Why are mountains the way they are? So he wanted to understand how the world works, and so he decided to go to a forest. And once when he entered the forest, it was so silent that not even a bird was singing. So he reaches the forest and he sat under a tree. And then when he started thinking, but not chanting mantras or anything else, everything was silent. And in this silence, he heard the tree speaking to him. So the tree started saying, we always stay still. As a tree, we are always staying still, we don't move, we are always here, but you as a human, you are always traveling here and there. Tell us the secrets of the world, right? But then Mercury says, look, you tell me the secrets of how do you remain so still and calm forever and ever, and I will teach you what I have learned. And like this, Mercury stayed in the forest for a long time, and then he learned a lot of things from the forest, and he also taught some things to the forest. And that is why Mercury is always known for his intelligence, for his communication, and a lot of other things. So learning capabilities included. Like Saturn is one of the most important planets that we will learn as we go along in this course, right? So we'll first try and understand a simple story about Saturn, which will give you a deeper idea of what Saturn is, what Saturn does. A long time back, there was a king named Vikramarjuna, and this king was known for his wars and battles. He was winning, and he had the ego, and he realized that he was too good, and he had the pride of a big king. So one day, an old astrologer goes to his palace and he says, "Dear king, Saturn is going to approach your one of your houses in your chart, so you should be careful." But then the king says, "Look, I fought battles and I fought many people. I'm not afraid of a planet." So the astrologer says, Shani does not use swords and bows and arrows. Shani uses peace. So Shani does not use bows and arrows, but Shani uses time and consequences, and karma has its tools of punishment. So be careful. So Vikramarjuna just doesn't really give heed to all this, and he goes on with his business. Later, the next day, when Saturn enters his chart and Saturn starts his work, that's when the king completely changes. The king is no more interested in the war. His horses start getting weak. His soldiers start leaving one by one. His advisors are no more listening to him. And so, with all this headache, the king decides to run away from his palace. But running away is never a solution, because Saturn does not depend on a location. Saturn always says, "Wherever you are, I'll find you and I will teach you my lessons." Right? So like this, the king runs away and becomes a common man. And as he goes from one village to another village, he realizes that some bad things are happening to him. In one village, people call him as a thief. And then in another village, he breaks a pot by mistake. And in the third village, he loses some of his money. Nothing violent happens, but he continuously keeps learning lessons. And then another day, he meets a blind potter. A blind potter asks him for help. And then now the king, who is a common man, starts helping his blind potter and lives with him for a few years. And as he lives and works with this blind potter, he starts thinking more like a common man and less like a king. And the next day, after a few years, the Lord Shani visits him. And when Lord Shani visits him, then the king Vikramarjuna, now a common man, says, "Look, you have defeated me." But Saturn says, "No, I've not defeated you. I've only returned you to yourself. The pride that you had was unnecessary. It was your enemy. So I've removed that." So Vikramarjuna thanks him. And the next day, the soldiers find him and take him back to his empire, and he becomes a king again. So this is how Saturn works. So we go to the next one. Now we talk about Rahu and Ketu together, but also separately. Okay, we spoke about the churning of the ocean, or the Samudra Manthan. So gods and demons were always fighting, that is Asuras and the Devas. And then they decided to work together in churning the ocean. They wanted to churn the ocean so that they start getting treasures of the people. So when they started churning the ocean, they found something called an Amrit. They found this nectar of immortality. And this nectar of immortality, whoever drinks it would be immortal. They couldn't be killed. So both the Devas and the Asuras were happy that they found the immortality liquid, and they were waiting to consume it. But then the Devas, the gods, realized that they shouldn't give it to the Asura or the demons. They wanted to keep it for themselves. So Lord Vishnu suggested that he take the form of Mohini, a woman, and then she would distribute, while only distribute the nectar to the gods and not to the Asuras. Next, Mohini starts distributing the nectar, and she's only distributing it to the gods, not to the demons. And one demon notices this and understands the plan. And his name was Swarabhanu. So Swarabhanu now sits he changes his form and it looks like a god, and he sits between Chandra and Surya, and he waits for the nectar. And now Mohini distributes the nectar to him and he consumes it. Now that he has consumed it, he becomes an immortal being. But next, the moment this happens, Surya and Chandra realize that there's something wrong with it, and they start shouting that he is not a god, he was a demon. So Vishnu, now who became the Mohi avatar, now he goes back to being Vishnu, and he chops the body of Svarbhanu into half, a head and a body. But by that time, Svarbhanu had already drank the nectar and he was immortal. So Vishnu then realized that Svarbhanu had done something really intelligent, and hence he gave him that. He praised him and he said, "Okay, now you did this, it's really good, so I'm going to make you Rahu and Ketu." Right? So that's how Rahu and Ketu took effect. They were demon. And so Rahu has been called as the planet of illusion. It gives you an illusion in whichever house it is. So you will start thinking, you will start seeing a lot of foggy things. It will make you very foggy. Your brain becomes foggy in that certain area, right? So in theo deception, desire, it will always expand your desire, expand. At the same time, Ketu, which is the second part of advancement, always is more spiritual. So Ketu is always detaching you from reality, detaching you from job, detaching you from everything. So Rahu and Ketu are two different faces of the same coin. Rahu wants things, Ketu doesn't want anything. It's like that. So we discussed about Rahu and Ketu as well. So we've gone through all the planets right now, which we need as our tools for predictions. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to assign a character to each one of these planets so that it's easy to remember. So all this we've done till now is to understand what these planets are all about. What is the flavor that they bring in? So the next step is we assign a character to each one of these planets, and then we will use these characters to start predicting. Okay, thank you.